Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my plant mug. It's so cute. I also have my Gryffindor, one of my Gryffindor shirts on in honor of Maggie Smith because sadly she passed away yesterday and I am very upset about it. She was my favorite. She played Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter and she was my favorite character. And she lived a long life and she was very beloved and how it was hilarious. But just in my feels a little bit about Harry Potter and I want to like rewatch all the movies now. So that's just a little snippet, but moving right along. Today's video is going to be a book unhaul. I have a lot of books around me right now that I'm getting rid of because I've just been in a spot where I have like no shelf space and also just trying to downsize in my life in general, feeling a little bit overwhelmed and cluttered. And just want to be able to downsize to have more freedom and just want to not be worried about buying things as much and not getting sucked into buying stuff. I'm trying to utilize my library a lot more. I listen to books 95% of the time when I'm reading. And so I'm trying to utilize like a lot of libraries and ways to listen to the books for free without buying a copy unless I really love it. So all of that has kind of played into this moment and I've been slowly collecting these books that I've been unhauling. I might have missed a few, but let's just get into it. A lot of it's not that deep. I either like read it and didn't like it, or I'm not gonna read it, or I have double copies of things. So here we go. The first one is Damsel by Elena K. Arnold. I read this, really didn't like it. I have not a review, but I have thoughts on it from like a reading wrap up, so I'm not really gonna get into this, but I'm getting rid of it because I didn't like it. And then we have All of Us Villains by Amanda Foot and Christine Lean Herman. I actually loved this book, but I have the Goldsboro editions up there, and I don't need both editions, even though I really do love the US hardcover. But I don't need multiples, so I'm getting rid of this. 5-star read though. And these I'm getting rid of simply because I thought I would read them and I haven't, and that is The Beautiful and The Damned by Renee Ahdieh. Like I said, I just haven't picked them up and they've been sitting here for a while. I got them like secondhand, or from overstock stores, so they were like very cheap, but I haven't been picking them up, and I think if I do, I'm probably going to listen to them anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. As well as All of Our Demise by Amanda Foot and Christine Lean Herman. This is the second book in the All of Us Villains duology, same reason I have the Goldsboro editions. And then I have The Kiss of Deception, The Heart of Betrayal, and The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. I'm getting rid of these because I got the Fairy Loot editions of these. So, like I said, I don't need duplicate copies, so moving right along. I did really like the first book though, Kiss of Deception. I think it's a really interesting story so far, and I am looking forward to continuing the series. I also have We Free the Stars and We Hunt the Flame. This is a duology by Hafsah Fazail. I do think I'm going to get to these at some point, and I'm excited to read them at some point, but they've been sitting on my shelf for a very long time, and like I've said a million times, I'm probably going to say more in this video, I'm trying to utilize my library a lot more and read via audiobooks for free. So I decided that I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these copies. If I love them in the future, I'm sure I could get very cheap used copies, but for now, they're going bye-bye. You know, just trying to downsize. It is what it is. Same thing with The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed. It's been sitting here for a while. I may read it eventually, but today's not that day. So I'm getting rid of this because it's been sitting on my shelf for too long. I'm also not going to be going into a lot of the plots of these books because we would be here for actually ever. So the next three that I'm getting rid of, I'm actually really sad about because I think they're beautiful. It's Wicked Saints Trilogy by Emily A. Duncan. We have The Wicked Saints, Ruthless Gods, and Blessed Monsters. I love these editions. These are the Outcrate editions. They're very like black and red and foily and beautiful. But I started the first book, DNF'd it, could not understand what was happening. People said it doesn't really get better. And I haven't heard great things about this series. I just thought the pitch sounded amazing. But because I DNF'd the first one and don't have really any desire to pick it up again, I think I just need to get rid of these. And then I have A Magic Steeped in Poison and A Venom Dark and Sweet. Nothing wrong with these books. I read the first one, I enjoyed them, but I got the Fairy Loot editions because they were just a little bit cooler. So getting rid of these. And then I have Oblivion by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was, I think, the first book in the Lux novel, but from Damon's perspective, so the main character's perspective. And I bought this for, it was on sale. I bought this because I thought that would be fun. But I think, again, if I'm going to read this at some point, I'm probably going to listen to it. So I'm passing it along. I'm also not sure that I need to read his perspective. And then I have Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. This is just the regular edition. I ended up getting the Illumicrate edition. That's why I'm passing this one along. Hopefully I like it. I started it, but didn't get very far and ended up putting it down. Not DNFing completely, but just like setting it down and not getting back to it yet. And then we have The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. I haven't heard the best things about this, and I'm curious about it, but again, if I really, really want to pick it up another time, I can do it from my library. So passing this one along. I was also trying not to overthink things and just be like, if you feel like you can get rid of it, get rid of it. The next one is The Bladed Faith by David Dalglish. I've talked about this. I hated this book. I thought I would really love it. I didn't, so we're getting rid of it. This next one hurt me a little bit, but it is What We Devour by Lindsay Miller, and I was pretty sad about this. This was a copy that I actually won from the author. It's signed, and it's dedicated to me, which makes me feel a little bit bad, but I read this and really didn't care for it, and I don't need to keep it around just because it was dedicated to me, so I'm also getting rid of it. Same kind of deal with The Winner's Curse. I ended up buying the Illumicrate editions of these, and I just had the first one by Marie Rakowski, so getting rid of this. And then we have Heart of Thorns, Tears of Frost, and Soul of Cinder by Brie Barton. I read the first book and it was okay. I didn't really like it that much. I didn't really love it at all. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm not sure I'm going to continue the series. So I decided to get rid of this trilogy. And then I have The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chinani. I actually love this book, but I don't feel the need to have this in general. If I ever want copies of them, I can get a paperback, but I don't feel the need to own a copy of this, even though I really enjoyed it, so I think it'd be better to pass it along to somebody else. And then A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. This is another case of I've had this for a very long time, but I've never picked it up. So I think I'm gonna pass this along. Could I read it someday? Maybe, but I feel like it's just one of those things where if you've planned on reading a book 2-3 years ago and you still haven't picked it up, are you really that interested in it? So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. This next one is actually maybe a little bit shocking. I think these books are absolutely stunning and beautiful and amazing, but I read the first one and I didn't have a strong desire to pick up the second book right away. I think I will finish the series eventually, but I don't think it's gonna be an absolute favorite for me, and so I just felt like somebody else will appreciate these editions more than me. That is the Bookish Box editions of the Diviners series by Libba Bray. The first one being The Diviners, Layer of Dreams, Before the Devil Breaks You, and The King of Crows. Like I said, they're beautiful editions, but for somebody that's not a huge fan of the first one and may continue the series, but not right away, I think somebody else would enjoy them. And then I also have a trilogy that I've never picked up, and that is Aurora Rising, Aurora Burning, and Aurora's End by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I've never read these. I might at some point, but not soon. So I'm getting rid of these. I'm getting rid of An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson because I got the Fairy Loot edition. So I don't need this one, but I do really like the cover. I think it's really pretty. I'm excited to read it. I then have A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. The only reason I'm getting rid of this is, again, because I'm more likely to listen to it. It's going to be like, it's just so short. So it'd be such a quick listen, but I feel like if I'm going to listen to this, or if I'm going to read it, I'm going to be listening to it, and so I don't need to keep this copy around. But it is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, so I do want to read it at some point. And then we have the Dragon Isle Wars series by Frost K. So the first one being The Court of Dragons, Queen of Legends, and Throne of Serpents by Frost K. I really loved the first book. I thought the second one was okay. I thought the third one was kind of okay, but not that great. But because I don't love them, I just feel like I need to get rid of them. So I am. This next one I waffled on for a long time, but that is Charlie Travesty Book 1 by Jesse Elliott and KJ Sutton. This was kind of like about a vampire that sounded really interesting. The magic system and the lore sounded really interesting, but I found out that they're not continuing the series, and so I kind of went back and forth for a while being like, do I read this, do I not? And I think I decided I'm just not going to read it and pass it along if somebody wants it. Next one is Promises and Pomegranates by Sav R. Miller, Monster and Muses Book 1. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I think I've kind of stomached as much as I can of those retellings for now, unless there's something that piques my interest eventually, or that I haven't already started. And I'm kind of just lost interest in it, so I'm passing it along. If I read any of the series, it'll probably be a different story. Next one is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. This was the indie edition, which is awesome and fine, but I have a broken binding edition of this, so I don't need this one, even though I think it's going to be a really cool book. Next is the UK paperbacks of The Ninth Reign, The Bitter Twins, and The Poison Song by Jen Williams. I have the broken binding editions right behind me, so I don't need these. And then we have a series by Elise Kova, the Fake Rate editions of Deal with the Elf King, A Dance with the Fae Prince, Duel with the Vampire Lord, and Duet with the Siren Duke. The reason I'm getting rid of these is because I read the first 3 in this series and I just always thought they were okay, like meh, they're okay, not horrible, not great. And I think because of that, I don't need to be keeping them. I think they're really pretty editions. Like, look at that. But if I don't really like the series, and I've read 3 of them out of the 5, I think, I don't know if the 5th one's come out yet, I don't feel like I need to keep it. So I feel like somebody else would appreciate it more than me, so we're getting rid of them. And then I have the Fairy Loot edition of the Atlas 6 series by Olivia Blake. So we have the Atlas 6, the Atlas Paradox, and the Atlas Complex. These are beautiful books. I have the Illumicrate editions right here. I don't need more than 1 edition. Getting rid of these. Next we have Evocation by S.T. Gibson. This is just one that I'm not sure that I care about that much, and so I'm getting rid of my copy. If I want to listen to it at some point, I can. On that same note, A Dowry of Blood. I would like to listen to this at some point, but I'm not dying to read it, so getting rid of this one. Also Fairy Loot Honey Witch. I wasn't really interested in reading this that much. I don't really know why. It's just not one that piqued my interest, and so I was like, well, I don't need a fancy edition of it then. So I'm passing that along. Next is The Devil Makes 3 by Tori Bavolino. I read this, and it's a dark academia book. It was fine. I liked it okay. Not enough to keep it, so getting rid of it. Also getting rid of Seven Faceless Saints. This is the Fairy Loot edition by M.K. Lobb. I just haven't been super intrigued about it. It's a really pretty edition, but I don't need a fancy edition just to sit there if I'm not going to read it. I might read it someday, but not today. Same with Zahara. This was an Illumicrate book that I got, Guardians of Dawn by S.J. Jones. Just hasn't piqued my interest that much, so passing along. I'm kind of operating in the sense that, like, if I end up falling in love with one of these books, I still don't have to buy a special edition of it. I'm trying to get past that urge. Next is Blood Scion by Deborah Fillet. I think this is a really cool cover and a really interesting story, but I haven't had the desire to pick it up, and so I'm passing it along. This is River of Shadows by Karina Halley. I read this, I thought it was okay, didn't really like it that much, didn't love it, so getting rid of it. Also getting rid of Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. This was the Goldsboro edition. I just haven't picked it up. I think I will at some point, but I don't need to keep a copy of it like this around. As well as Forged by Blood by Igor Okosun. This was a Fairy Loot edition of a book. Just haven't had the desire to pick it up. As Threads That Bind by Kika Hasapolo. I might read this at some point. It did kind of sound interesting, but I don't need this edition. So passing it along. As well as The Dark King by Gina L. Maxwell. I feel like this is just going to be one of those books that's fine, but I don't love, and I don't need this edition of it. Even though most of these books are super pretty, I'm just trying to get past that in my mind of, like, hanging on to it just because it's pretty. I was trying to be very ruthless with this cut of unhauling books. Getting rid of The Shadow in the Glass by J.J. A. Haro. This was like a Lit Joy Crate edition, I think. I'm getting rid of this because I read it. I didn't really love it. It was fine, but not great. Then we have The Library of the Dead, Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, and The Mystery of Dunvegan Castle. These are all by T.L. Huchu. They're all beautiful. They have like maps editions. They're Goldsboro editions. I read the first one and really didn't like it. I kind of hated it. And I don't need to keep the trilogy around because they're pretty and have maps. Also getting rid of The Circus of Wonders by Elizabeth McNeil. This is a pretty like limited edition, beautiful book. I think it's Waterstones. But it's not a story or a genre I usually like. I think it's historical fiction, potentially. I like that it's around a circus. I love circuses, but I'm like, if I'm gonna read this someday, I'm not sure I'll love it, and if I do, I could find a copy potentially, but I don't need this. I don't need it. Also getting rid of the Fairy Loot edition of Juniper and Thorn by Eva Reed. I'm sure I could read this someday and love it, potentially, but I just don't need this. Also getting rid of The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black, Fairy Loot edition. I think it's a really cool edition, but it hasn't piqued my interest enough to care about keeping it around. Same with the Goldsboro editions of The Final Strife and the Battle Drum by Sarah L. Arifi. This is just ones that I thought sounded really cool, but I haven't really had the desire to pick them up, and so I'm passing them along. Also getting rid of The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. I read this, I loved his first book, and this one was just okay. So I'm getting rid of it because I didn't like it that much. I'm also getting rid of Shadow and Moonlight and To Ashes and Dust by Luna Laurier. This is a bookish box set of these books, and while it's a really pretty edition, really pretty set, I think it's really cool the way they do the spines. If I want to read them, I can read them. I don't need these editions. Same with Between Wrath and Mercy and Between Despair and Hope by Just Wisecup. These are the bookish box editions. They're very pretty. I'm sure someone will appreciate them more than me. I will probably read these at some point, but I don't need these beautiful honkin' editions taking up space. I think that's everything. So those rapid fire are all of the books that I'm getting rid of for now. I kind of want to go through and see if there's any more I want to get rid of, but also give myself a chance to read some things. But let me know what you think of this book unhaul. If you're trying to unhaul books, or if you need encouragement to be cutthroat, encourage me to be cutthroat because I need it. Let me know if any of these shocked you or just your opinions on unhauling. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.